We talk a lot about fixing what's broken in this job, but sometimes the most powerful thing you can do as a leader is just to see what's already going on right. Know Your Force is a simple system that sends a quick text survey to the people you interact with. It's helping leaders see the good their teams are already doing, back their people with real data, and step in before stress turns into burnout. Learn more at knowyourforce.com. This episode is sponsored by Hero Schedule. If your department needs better scheduling software that isn't outdated, clunky, and expensive, Hero Schedule is an easy switch. It's $4 per user per month, and they give you a free 30-day trial. Get started at heroschedule.com and click on Try Hero Schedule. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tum. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. All right, welcome back, everyone. Today I have a special solo episode. It is 7 tips to focus on coming into the new year. To steal a concept featured by James Hillman, it's not so much that we are developing. He actually features a quote from Picasso where Picasso says that he doesn't develop, he just is. And I like to think of them as different perspectives coming in toward the same concept. Like we're looking at the same concept, whether you are building yourself and arming yourself with knowledge, with potential through habit and intention, or whether you are carving away what your potential is deep down inside, whether you're pruning and removing what's hindering you, what's not helping you. Either way, you're realizing what you can do. You're realizing and actualizing your full potential, how to optimize, how to be the best for yourself, for those you care about, for your service, for your purpose. So with all that, I'm going to run through 7 concepts that you can put into practice today. You can put into practice this week, this month, for the upcoming year, and continue to revisit these. They're simple in concept, but they can expand out to a myriad of different directions and applications. So number 1 will go to eating. Because New Year's is so frequently a time to reflect on our physical health, so our health, nutrition, fitness, watch your window. So watch your eating window. There's a lot of traction, a lot of conversation, a lot of results that folks have shared about intermittent fasting and fasting protocols. Rather than focus too hard on that, and we'll come to another prong that will focus on what I'm trying to say, but rather than focus on the extreme, just watch your window. So a good eating window for people to play with before they get too deep in the weeds on fasting is simply a 12-hour window. So if you think about it, if you generally have dinner, if you're a day shifter, a normal quote-unquote person, you have dinner at p.m., then you're really done eating and then you just call it good. You don't snack, you don't take a bag of chips, you don't take a jar of peanut butter to the couch. If you just tell yourself you're good, you have a nice, substantial dinner, you're not stuffed to the brim, but you are satisfied, you're good for the night. Right? You can have some tea later in the evening, something that's non-caloric to kind of settle you out, but just be done. There's so much to rest and digest, getting into your parasympathetic, that will absolutely help with sleep, but it also will prevent all the cravings. It'll prevent the habit of feeling like you need to consume more snacks and calories later. Then if we just add 12 hours, you finished eating by 7 p.m., then just don't have breakfast or any calories until 7 a.m. And if you get up earlier than that, you can consider having tea, having coffee, black. But that's not a crazy thing to start. I know a lot of people like to go really hard in the paint when they hit New Year's and they want to start this extreme fasting protocol. Maybe they only eat for like an 8-hour window or a 6-hour window because it worked really good for their buddy. Maybe they want to do 2-a-days, but that kind of is generally it is not sustainable. A lot of times we're putting on too many things. We're pulling too many levers at the same time. So not only we not know what's going to work, but we are creating this extremity that is really hard to maintain. And generally, your results are going to plateau. So just watch your window. Start with something moderate. You're probably going to notice really good changes with your sleep. You're probably going to really notice an ability to cut down on excess calories. And you may realize that you have a relationship with eating when you're bored or as like a coping kind of thing rather than when you're actually hungry. And it could do a lot for your blood sugar. So this is something I'm working on, something I'm going to revisit into this new year from years ago doing more intense fasting protocols. I'm not going to do that so much, but just return to this 12-12. Number 2 is going to be float like a butterfly. So a little shout out to Muhammad Ali, but just to stay light on your feet, right? And what do I mean by that? What I mean is don't glue yourself to any one stationary place too long. So if you're desk bound in your work like I am now, it's having an intention, setting reminders, setting goals to get away from the desk, go talk to other people you work with. That's actually fantastic for organizational output, for culture, for team cohesion. I've had assignments where it was just nose to the grindstone and I got a lot done. The team got a lot done. We had the results. But truly, in hindsight, that is generally the thing I come back to most that I would change about how hard I grinded because I did sacrifice a lot of face time. It's not just about socializing, but it does help team alignment and it helps you move the needle in a group way, in a more meaningful way. But just to combat our sedentary lifestyles, it is just a nod to get moving more frequently, even for those that are in field type work. So if you're in EMS and you're in an ambulance, sure, you're technically driving around and you're technically getting out of your rig here and there. Patrol work, obviously, I talk about that a lot. Technically, you're going to a lot of calls, but in between them, you're sitting a ton. You're sitting in the station, you're sitting at the substation, you're sitting in your car. It's a lot of sitting. So find little ways to break it up, whether that's doing some body weight squats or just simply walking around or simply parking a little farther or simply electing not to take the elevator and take the stairs. Nothing wrong with some stairs. Actually, there's a lot of good from taking some stairs. So again, number 2 is float like a butterfly. Keep moving. Number 3 is there's 2 sides to everything, and this is a nod to the power of moderation. So this is what I was teasing at before with number 1, but let's try not to just go into the 2-a-days extreme caloric restriction, doing keto at the same time as doing fasting, at the same time as adding, 3 times a week high intensity training and upping your mileage as far as running weekly. Let's not all do them at the same thing because honestly, that's how things break. You got to ease into things, not just for performance, but also for sustainability, for longevity. So you can take it from me or you could not take it from me. You could take it from the myriad of people that you can find on the internet, or if you ask around your circles, there's probably someone that did this workout regimen at the same time as doing this. And meanwhile, their sleep was suffering. They had a baby, they were just stressed at work, stressed at home, and something gave, right? Something snapped. And sometimes that's literal. Sometimes that's a tendon. Sometimes that's a strain or a sprain. So let's try to ease into it. Set meaningful goals and break them down into things that you can accomplish and build off of. I talk a lot about that in different curriculum with Get Gritty, which is available online, bluegritwellness.com/shop, as well as a lot of the coaching I've done and I continue to do, which is really helping people build meaningful habits and routines so that they stick. I mean, anyone can assign you a ton of stuff to do that makes you feel really good, as in like kind of that dopamine, cortisol junkie type of response. A lot of us that are listening in might be disposed toward that or predisposed toward that or have conditioned to really enjoy that. I certainly was and am one. I love to see the results of my efforts. However, in knowing myself, I recognize that that can be an Achilles heel at times. Number four is going to be focused on relationship. And what I'm going to ask and invite people to do is think about building bumpers or boundaries in your relationships. So, although New Year's is frequently a time that we tend to think about physical health and fitness and nutrition, it's absolutely a time where we can kind of reset and revisit a lot of these different health pillars in our life. So, with building bumpers and boundaries, what I'm inviting people to consider, not too prescriptively, because everyone's going to be different in your relationships throughout your life, whether it's family, work, friendship, mentorship, they're all going to be really different. But by building boundaries, what I'm asking you to do is consider what type of rules or kind of framework is going to help you in X relationship or Y relationship. Sometimes that might come into communicating how you communicate, because oftentimes the biggest strain points in any type of relationship is a breakdown in communication. And that also looks like a breakdown of expectations. Someone wanted this, and yet they're feeling like they're getting that, a breakdown in trust. These breakdowns can overlap and a lot of times be saying the same thing, which is we're not speaking the same language, we're not on the same sheet of music. So by establishing some bumpers or boundaries, what you can do is get on the same sheet of music, right? That might have to do with how you interact, how you reach out, how often you make time for each other, what that looks like. If you realize that there's a friendship that you feel is falling off, then maybe a bumper is you realize that you need to make time for each other no less than once a month. And then you set that intention. You communicate that intention to say, hey, we don't have a coffee date. We don't have a lunch date on the books this month. We're running out of time. Let's get that on, right? And then you communicate that, you work through that. So you don't get to a point of resentment, which is a very dangerous place to be from relationship experts like the Gottmans. You don't want resentment. It's an absolute corrosive space to be in. So bumpers can look like that. They can look like positive goals that you want to set for this person. It could be amount of touch point. It could also be like a more like a boundary where you're recognizing, hey, maybe you really enjoy this person at work. However, they seem to be dropping in a lot of times at these really inopportune moments where you're about to hop on a call or you're about to break off for a meeting and you feel a little like you're held hostage. You feel bad for looking at your watch and trying to make these subtle cues that they may not be picking up on. Well, it's going to help both people if you find an opportunity to directly communicate that, maybe outside the moment. Maybe it looks like communicating that you love when they swing by. You do realize that you've been really stacked up at work lately. And a lot of times when they've swung by, you feel bad because you're not able to give them their full attention or your full attention. So, with that, asking them if they're able to send you a text or if there's something that comes up, can you find time in a calendar? Can you actually schedule something or try to preload it with like, hey, like, is this a check in or is there something I like that you want to dive into and help you more? Because I can absolutely chat for a couple minutes. However, if there's something like more in depth you want to talk about, I have time at 3:30. So communicate that, right? Put that out into the air so it's not just something that you're tiptoeing around. That tension is generally not helpful to anybody. Number five, I'm going to invite you to take inventory of your resources. Sometimes this means finances. That's where we go really quickly. There's a lot of power in recognizing what you have, what you're using it for. You know, money is a tool. It should be helpful, not harmful to us. It is absolutely a focal point for most of us because you need money to live and you need money to live in the manner that you and your family or your loved ones want to live. Beyond that, also think about general resources, right? So think about the stuff you have. You know, we come out of the holidays and we acquire this stuff. We buy this stuff for ourselves and for each other. And so it might be a good time to take inventory on all the stuff. Like, what is serving me? What is serving us? What is serving my goals? Are there things that are kind of hindering me. It's just clutter. And that could be like literal clutter. That could be recognizing an opportunity to do some New Year's cleaning and purge a bunch of stuff, donate stuff to new places and homes that could really use it. Is it if it's not sparking joy, right? And so I think that's a Marie Kondo kind of tidiness, cleanliness, purging stuff kind of vibe where you realize that there's so much stuff packed in the closet. Maybe there's a few keepsakes, and then there's just a bunch of stuff that you label keepsakes that you really don't care about. So consider that. Take inventory on all those gift cards. Maybe put them all in a place so you can actually spend them. You can actually use them. They're not just burning a hole in your junk drawer. So maybe you make a date. You schedule something a couple months out for this restaurant that you were gifted. So take inventory so you can plan on how to use this stuff or release that which is not serving you anymore. Number 6 is to look back in order to look forward. I've really recognized the power of reflection through journaling, but also just taking time to sit and think about things. I've realized the more I've tried to read in the last year or two, it generates a lot of thoughts within myself. And so sometimes I have the exercise where I need to just read what I'm reading and just kind of be in that moment. But other times I get a lot of interesting thoughts. I get a lot of memories kicked up from some of the material I'm reading. And it's been helpful to me to unpack it and jot it down somewhere, revisit it in the moment or revisit it later. So in order, again, to know where you're going, you have to know where you've been. So it's the power of reflection. There's different ways this can look. It could be journaling, like I just talked about. It could be sitting down with your close friend. That could be monthly. That could be weekly. That could be quarterly, where you talk about how far you've come as far as goals, where iron sharpens iron. So that could be a friend. That could be a work colleague. That could be group coaching, something like that, right? So just recognizing the power of reflecting, because sometimes if you don't take a moment intentionally to look at how far you've come, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it in the weeds. You're just going to be focused on plowing ahead, but not really taking stock, which can also prevent you from recognizing so much opportunity of gratitude in that process. Number 7, and the final point I will share today, is to liberate your time. So think about that phrase, liberate your time. There's a lot of people that talk about making time and time being this elusive resource. And yes, I agree, it is elusive, it is slippery, it is extremely valuable. Some would say it's invaluable. It is the most critical resource because unlike money, you can't print more of it yet. I know there's some sci-fi out there that has visited this, but in the moment, there's nothing else you can do. However, by thinking about it like liberating your time, it's recognizing that you have all this time. You already have it, but it gets stolen, right? It gets tricked away from you, sometimes by ourselves. If you pull out Instagram, you're probably not generally creating a lot of useful time. And this is not a values judgment towards you and your doom scrolling. This is me reflecting out loud to what I know is a very prevalent trend of people that generally bust out social media. There are so many factors that impact the well-being of law enforcement officers, from wellness topics and developmental content to organizational expectations and social connections. RippleWorks solves that problem by providing anonymous check-ins, so each officer can get exactly what they need and want for prime performance, while agencies learn in real time how their people are doing through analytic dashboards. Take a look at RippleWorks today at www.rippleworks.com and schedule a demo. That's RippleWorks, WORX.com. Law enforcement and government agencies struggle with parking citations, often because no one will pay them. Boots or other devices are costly, and they invite confrontation when implied and later removed by enforcing employees. With TireTag, you can avoid many hurdles and ultimately promote public safety and revenue collection. To learn more, visit tiretag.com. For a thorough conversation on how TireTag can help your agency and revenue collection, visit episode 204. That's 204. So, what have I done about it in the last week? I've actually moved my Instagram app on my phone, right? It was in a little section. I moved it off there. So, it is kind of disturbing. And I don't know if y'all have experimented with this or you just realize it. It's kind of disturbing to me how many times I will access apps like that one specifically, because of Blue Grit, because of what I've been trying to build over the last number of years. People send DMs. I want to be responsive. I think about posts. I want to post. I want to create more content and useful conversation points. Shoot, it is just too much because it's not just getting on there to respond to a question or a note. It is diverting attention and looking at this video and then looking at that page and then looking at this one and posting on that one and sharing this one. And then it's memes and it's videos. And then it's 20, 30 minutes later, right? So liberate your time. Keep the time you have, unchain the time that gets sucked away and stolen, sometimes based on our not constructive habits. So start small. A lot of times, I'm talking about times, 10 or 15 minutes can go a long, long way. I like starting in the beginning of the day, in the mornings, because for most of us, that is the easiest time to not have interrupted. Where if you get up a little bit earlier, generally that wake up time and that kicking up, um, knocking the rust off and just kicking up your brain and your body can be solely yours. Generally, there's stuff that everyone's going to do anyway. You're generally going to brush your teeth or put some water on your face. You're generally going to take a shower and or make coffee and or have a nice pint of water, 16 ounces of water, lukewarm. If you want to get fancy, throw a lemon in there. If that's too acidic, don't throw the lemon in there. But all to say, like, have that process. And a lot of the things I just mentioned are great for hygiene. They're great for health. You can also do, some stretching, right? You could be at the bathroom counter as you brush your teeth and do like a low squat, holding onto the counter as you're brushing your teeth, right? Like, it doesn't have to be strenuous. In fact, going back to the earlier point, the power of moderation, two sides to every coin, it shouldn't be strenuous because we want it to last, right? We want to build these habits. So I just give an example of habit stacking where you are brushing your teeth, you're thinking on gratitude and you're doing some low kind of range of motion squat. Like you're just sitting into your squat as low as you can go and kind of holding that, letting that part of you stretch out. I just stacked like 3 things, right? You could even throw in some low, slow breathing, some diaphragmatic breathing. Shoot, that's just 4 things, right? All of these different health and wellness experts, doctors, like psych docs and also MDs, a lot of them in the space are talking about how there's so much benefit to delaying looking at your phone, delaying opening up your apps, like I just talked about. So carve out that time, make it yours. You already have it. So maybe keep it, right? And that's another application of building those boundaries and those bumpers just to keep you on track to the things you want to do. I kind of breezed through the last point, the prior point being to look back, to look forward. That is recognizing how much you've done so you can set these meaningful goals into your new year. Really refocus in on your mission. If you haven't done that, I challenge you. So I hope you enjoyed that. 7 simple concepts to think about and chew on, but then they can get a lot more complicated, sometimes in a good way, and more specific depending on what your needs are. So if you haven't checked out the website, please do that. You can get on the free newsletter that comes out weekly simply by going to the website, bluegritwellness.com. If you got questions, you can reach me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. If you're subscribing to the newsletter, you can reply off of that. The newsletter and then the website, the shop will have places where you can find Get Gritty. That's the online video course, or it's Access Online. It's a self-paced, on-demand video course focused on health and wellness and building resilience. And if you love the idea of iron sharpening iron, if you want to step out of your normal circle and you want to build some intention and regularity, meeting with a group, I've done a couple rounds of group coaching. I'm excited to kick up another one this first quarter of 2026. So I have a few people from different time zones that are interested. I'm just trying to get more critical mass so we can pick some good time or times to revisit that group. Small group coaching, bring all your goals, bring your challenges, and we'll kick them up with different themes when we meet every other week to nail out those progression points and get you on track to keep hammering your goals and your results. As always, thank you for following along. Thank you for listening in, sharing the show and the newsletter. It's extremely meaningful to be a part of your life and your journey as far as your health, as far as your leadership, your life, how you can live and serve better. So thanks so much for everything up to this point. I'm really excited for 2026 coming up for you and for all of us in the community. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.